Hello and welcome to my review for Wes Anderson's Isle of Dogs, his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, ninth feature film, I believe. I got my facts and figures correct there. Now before I get to the film itself, Isle of Dogs, which is, for the record, my #1 most anticipated film of the year, I did film a top 20 most anticipated films of 2018, but to be honest, the fact that I lost that video and accidentally deleted it was no big kind of travesty, because there's a lot of films coming out this year that, yeah, I'm excited for, but I mean Avengers and the big comic book movies and stuff, there really wasn't that many compared to last year where you had like Star Wars and Blade Runner, War for the Planet of the Apes, Logan, all these huge films for me, as a fan of those franchises and stuff. So yeah, but for the record, my #1 most anticipated film of the year was Isle of Dogs. Now, Wes Anderson, a little bit of background, is one of my favourite directors, has been for many years. He is a director who has a style that you either love it, or you hate it, or you just don't get on with it, or you like bits of it. There's people really fall under specific kind of categories when it comes to Wes Anderson's films. So I wouldn't say that it's a strictly love it or hate it kind of style, but definitely he divides people, and if you don't like his style, then you probably won't like most of his films, because they all fall under the same aesthetic, even though a lot of his films feel very different to me, but undeniably they have his fingerprints all over them, and when you're watching a Wes Anderson film. When me and Connie went to see Moonrise Kingdom, in the first minute of the film she turned to me and said, "You can really tell it's a Wes Anderson film." So even her, who at that point was really kind of inexperienced with well, not films, but Wes Anderson and his style, could instantly pick up that that this is a guy who has a very specific style, a very specific visual way of doing things and telling stories with movies. I love his early films. I love all of his films. He's one of those directors who every single film I love. Obviously there are ones I love more than the others, but there really isn't that much of a difference, and I really am just so invested in anything he does, so it is always going to excite me, especially at the glacial pace that he makes films. I think the past 10 years he's made 4. So he's not one of those directors who every single year is pumping out film after film after film where it's like, that was good, no, that not so much, oh, that was great. For me personally as a fan, it's like great, 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 great. So really, this review, if you're looking for a kind of acute criticism on Isle of Dogs, you're not going to find it. Though I do have some things to say that I didn't like about the film, so you can stay tuned for that maybe. But regardless, huge fan of Wes Anderson, huge kind of anticipator of this film coming out, and the fact that it is stop motion animation, which he did once before, almost 10 years ago now. He would have been working on it 10 years ago. Fantastic Mr. Fox, which I really liked when I first saw it, and I love it now. It grows on me every single time I see it. I think it's one of the best stop motion films I've seen, and I love how his kind of whimsy fit perfectly with the whimsy of Roald Dahl. But this is an original story, this is a Wes Anderson story, though it feels very much not taken from other places, but very much informed by his love of other things, of other cultures, more specifically Japan. I'd say this feels like his film his love letter to Akira Kurosawa, the same way that the Darjeeling Limited was a love letter to India and maybe Satyajit Ray. He very much, to me, feels like a polite Quentin Tarantino, where he'll take all these influences and he'll use them, but put them through his own filter. Isle of Dogs is an adventure movie and absurdist comedy starring talking dogs who speak English on an island of trash where they've been kind of shipped off in Japan. The story is that Maya Kobayashi, and it goes back to centuries earlier. It kind of plays on that kind of the old kind of mythic tales of Japanese folklore and stuff like that, and you see very much the old style Japanese paintings that kind of were made to kind of tell all these old stories. And so there's a lot of different art styles used in the film, not just stop motion animation. There's even some 2D animation in here, which is really cool and really well done. But I loved the painted backdrops of affected to look like these old Japanese paintings, and tell the backstory of the Kobayashi clan family and how they were all about cats. And these wild dogs kind of, you know, came in and stuff, and there was a big war, and so the Kobayashi family really has it in for dogs. This is set 20 years in the future in Japan. Megasaki, I believe, was the perhaps must be fictional city in Japan. And Mayor Kobayashi has outlawed dogs. There's this dog flu that's come out and stuff, so they've shipped all the dogs off to this trash island, the Isle of Dogs. And the very first dog to arrive on the island is called Spots, who was the security dog for Mayor Kobayashi's ward, Atari Kobayashi, this young boy who lost his family. He was taken in by his uncle, Mayor Kobayashi, and had this dog, you know, entrusted to him, but the dog got the flu, and so he got shipped off. And it's set a little bit after that, the majority of the movie, where Atari has built his own plane, has flown it to the Isle of Dogs to find Spots, to find his faithful companion. And there's an incredibly moving sequence where we get a flashback of Atari meeting Spots for the first time, where he's in his hospital. And what I loved about the film is that Japanese is spoke throughout the film. A lot of times it isn't translated. A lot of times it is translated. For Mayor Kobayashi's kind of speeches in this kind of town hall, we have an American translator kind of speaking over him, so we get to hear what he's actually saying. That's played by, I believe, Frances McDormand. Great voice cast, you know, Bryan Cranston, who is really one of the standouts here. You get a lot of the Wes Anderson comebacks. You got Bill Murray, you got Jeff Goldblum, Edward Norton, you know. I just love how he keeps collecting all these incredible actors that he works with and keep coming back again and again. We didn't get people like Jason Schwartzman, I don't believe, and certainly not Owen Wilson, but still, a lot of those returning voices come to this film. And so we get the dialogue translated, but the Japanese, and it says at the beginning, there's a lot of title cards in the film, as you'd expect from Wes Anderson. It says that, you know, the original language is in this film, and sometimes it'll be translated, sometimes it won't. And so Atari's in his hospital bed, we get this flashback scene, and he's introduced to Spots, his security dog, and he has a little headset. And so the boy has the headset, and the boy starts kind of whispering to the dog. And the dog, Spots, just says back to him, you know, I can hear you, I can hear you. And both their eyes start welling up with tears, and it floored me. You know, it wasn't like anything profound was being said, but it was just like, I can hear you, I'm here. You know, and and just seeing the kind of water kind of begin to bristle under the bristle. Can water bristle? I don't think it can, but to begin to kind of, you know, ripple underneath the eyelids, the tear ducts of this dog and this young boy was just so incredibly moving to me. And then within 5 seconds, you know, the whole cinema was laughing because there was another joke. Very funny film, but much like Wes Anderson's comedy, it isn't a film that's trying too hard to get the jokes, to get the laughs, I don't feel, because it's a very funny film, but, you know, it's just his style. You know, it doesn't feel like a full-out drama, it doesn't feel like a full-out comedy. I guess you could use the term dramedy that I've seen thrown around in recent years, but what a weird film. Only a film like this could be made by Wes Anderson, I feel like, because it's just so weird, so out there. But beautiful, and the stop motion animation is absolutely stunning. What I loved about Fantastic Mr. Fox was that all the characters are foxes, or you know, the majority of the characters are foxes or animals, and you know, you just see the hair moving all the time, whether it's a breeze coming in and rippling the fur, or whether it's just, you know, just moving generally. The amount of detail it must have taken to do that, just to move these little tiny hairs, and to make it seem real and not just like all random, to make it feel fluid and natural. It's just a skill unto itself, and obviously Wes is directing this thing, but huge respect to all of the artists who worked with actually moving these puppets, with creating these puppets, with creating these incredible sets. I mean, there's so many characters in the film, especially in the town hall meetings with Mayor Kobayashi. It's just so impressive. I'm always so impressed by stop motion animation, but here it really, and I guess it probably is maybe the most ambitious stop motion film, because it is the longest stop motion film ever made. It's only like 100 minutes, but you know, they don't tend to be that long. And there's so much detail, so many locations, so many different, you know, progressions to the characters as well, because as the dogs go on this adventure, you know, they get dirtier, they get bites and stuff, they get kind of wounds and stuff, then they get cleaned and their fur looks different, you know. And again, much like Fantastic Mr. Fox with the dogs, their fur is always moving, and it's just such a wonder to behold. The first 10 minutes of the film, I couldn't suppress just a big grin on my face, just enjoying how it looked like, you know, at the bare minimum. But I love Wes's kind of whimsical style, the offbeat humor, You know, just the very, and the absurdist humor that he throws in there as well. There's just some really weird, wacky stuff in there that is just so, you know, weird, you just can't help but laugh, and I love that stuff. But I loved the core story as well of this young boy Atari trying to find his dog, who was only ever supposed to be his security dog, who was only supposed to be his protector, but who became his pet, became his friend. He wants to find that dog again. I think anyone can relate to the story of, I've lost my pet, I want to find it again, I'll do anything I can to get them. And, you know, along the way he meets these other dogs, you know, you have like Edward Norton and Jeff Goldblum, Bill Murray. I wish those characters had been in the film more. Towards the second half they kind of fade into the background a little bit, and we focus more on this kind of outsider dog called Chief, I believe. I only watched it last night. Played by Bryan Cranston. He's a stray, you know, all these other dogs who've been kind of deported to the trash island, you know, they were domesticated, they were house dogs, they got the flu and got shipped off. This dog, Chief, played by Bryan Cranston, is, you know, he's a stray dog. He never had a master, and he rejects the idea of you know, playing fetch or, you know, being petted, and he has this compulsion to bite people who try and touch him. He says he doesn't even know why at one point. He's like, I don't know what it is with me. You know, he's this broken person, a broken dog, a broken, you know, soul. And he kind of gets this relationship with Atari building up that he obviously completely rejects at first, and you know where it's going to go, that they're going to warm to each other. But I love, that was my favourite section of the film, was when the group got split up. We had Atari and Chief going off on their own. And again, I just loved the adventure of it, you know, across this disgusting, you know, trash island. And there's all these different flavours and colours to all the different locations. At first I thought when I saw the trailer, it's this very small island just with trash. But it's this huge expanse. There's all these different, like, broken down industrial facilities, this abandoned theme park, you know, it's this huge kind of thing that has been this huge dumping ground. And I just loved the adventure of it, and again, you know, Wes Anderson style. Part 1, you know, the Atari's lantern and all this kind of stuff, and I loved all the political intrigue that came into it, and how when we're looking at these TV broadcasts of the interviews going on about the situation, oh, the Mayor Kobayashi's ward has gone missing, we've seen him on the trash island, and he's, you know, he's trying to find his old dog and everything, and we see the actual, you know, stop motion animation puppets speaking on a chat show, and on the side of the screen we'll see the TV broadcast, which is done in 2D animation. So I love the blending of those styles. This is just a masterpiece as far as the way the film looks. The music is incredible. You know, you hear the drums in the trailer, you hear that that kind of pop song that plays in the trailer. They're used throughout the film, and in really effective ways. Alexander Desplat did the score again. I think he's worked with Wes Anderson quite a few times now, and he's a great composer, and it's not a typical score, and it is informed by the Japanese culture, which the whole film is. The whole film is a love letter to Japanese culture and cinema. There's all these little references, you know, like, oh, the Kikuchiyo reference, the Kikuchiyo residence, which is a reference, of course, to Seven Samurai. I'll leave that one in for free. And there is a big Seven Samurai reference in the film, which I don't want to spoil too much, but when it happened, I almost cried. Like, it just overpowered me. I was like, oh, wow, you know, and but it made me almost cry because I was just thinking about Seven Samurai. But I loved that, you know, and I loved that maybe I was one of the, you know, I just felt like it was a special thing for people who are fans of that stuff to kind of be like, oh my god, that's that from Seven Samurai, you know. Even some of the designs of the Japanese human characters looked vaguely similar to certain Japanese movie stars. Maybe I'm reading into that too much, but you can really tell how much he loves that, much like you could in the Darjeeling Limited, how much he loved Indian cinema. And so I just love how, like I was saying, like a polite Quentin Tarantino, he's taking from these things and kind of just doing a very weird story. I liked how cats were portrayed in the film as these kind of evil little shits. You know, they've always got this kind of sour look on their face, and they're always there with the evil people. I love cats. I'm not a big dog guy, but I loved that. I thought it was funny. It was humorous, and you know, if you're not a dog person, which I kind of am not, it's hard to not feel like one at the end. After the end of this film, it's you really grow to love these dog characters, and just their designs are so cute, but their personalities shine through this. You know, again, this offbeat, witty dialogue that comes out, and recurring jokes as well. You know, lots of visual stuff. Overall, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It is my #1 film of the year so far, and I think it'll be hard to top it. But there are a few things I didn't think were the best about it. You know, to be critical, trying to kind of make this more of a review than a gush fest, but you know, it is what it is. It did get a bit too fast at times. Wes played with split screen at times. And one sequence, it kind of just, I was confused. I didn't know what I was looking at, and I kind of wasn't sure what really had gone down in the action of the scene. There are a few other moments where, again, it's just moving a bit too fast, and I was missing things. Now, there are moments that are designed to be freeze-framed later on to kind of catch all these things, but things that you need for the story, moving a little bit too quick. And I do feel like the focus shifts between some of the characters maybe a little bit too more, I don't know, like the core pack of dogs that we first meet at the beginning of the film. Throughout the second half of the film, they pretty much become, you know, an afterthought. Which is fine because they're not really the focus of the story, but you really get to like them at the beginning of the film. It sets them up so well. But then we don't really see that much more of them in the second half. And even Chief, you know, who for all intents and purposes is the lead dog character of the film, there are parts where it just becomes a bit separated from him at times, I felt like. But overall, I feel like it's going to be like Fantastic Mr. Fox. I had the same issue with Fantastic Mr. Fox. The second half of the film felt like, oh, well, there's so much going on that I'm kind of losing track of things. But every time I see it again, it resonates more. And those kind of moments, like the wolf moment in Fantastic Mr. Fox, there's a few of those that kind of dance with that kind of, there's just a weird poignance to some of the moments in this film. And just a flat out weirdness in other periods, you know. So, yeah, there's certainly, it's not a perfect film, but I loved absolutely everything about it, and, you know, for all intents and purposes, is my favourite film of the year. Which, you know, again, we're only you know, a quarter into the year so far, and there's been a lot of good ones, actually. But for me, this is my favourite film of the year, and there's just so much I want to keep on talking about, like the cinematography, the framing, the composition. At times it recalls Kurosawa or Westerns, you know, there's lots of influences, like I said, but it still feels like his style, the Wes Anderson framing, the very particular kind of symmetrical aesthetic. There's a signature Wes Anderson scene that's like a top-down view of someone preparing a sushi meal. And, you know, you're seeing a fish get hacked up, which that kind of stuff is kind of icky to me, but I found it really kind of enjoyable. There's even actually a surgery scene where you see someone get an organ removed, and that stuff really gets to me. I can't watch that stuff at all, but in this weird stop-motion world, I was oddly kind of captivated by it. And I also loved how all the Japanese characters speak in Japanese. There's no kind of they speak English just for the kind of convenience of the audience, even though we get things translated and narrators kind of step in. I love how it sits there and it's true to the country and the people and their language. I liked that a lot. And ultimately, the main theme of the film is about people coming together, and these dogs coming together with this young boy and their sense of community, doing things together and helping other people out. And there's a great arc there for Chief as the kind of main dog character of how he goes from being this stray dog, being this loner, this guy who looks out for himself, this dog that looks out for himself, into someone who helps other people and how that can be good. So it has a nice message. Just I'm endlessly impressed with stop-motion animation in general. Putting that into a Wes Anderson film is incredible, with all these great, you know, talented actors, and hearing their voices is another great element. And then Japanese culture, which I'm such a big fan of, and references to Japanese movies that I'm such a big fan of. There was just no way I wasn't going to love this film. But I really loved it a little bit more than I thought I would, and that's always good. And I think I probably rambled on about it enough for now, so thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Leave your thoughts down below if you've seen Isle of Dogs, what you thought about it. I did see a preview screening of it last night, so if you didn't see that, then I think it comes out in the UK on Friday. I think it comes out in America this week too. So please let me know your thoughts down below, and what you thought, what your favourite moments were. You know, again, big Wes Anderson fan, was so pleased with it. And I think now just continues his streak of making consistently great films throughout his entire career for now over 20 years. And yeah, I think I've exhausted the point, and it got a little bit longer than I wanted it to as far as the video. But you know, it's a film I love. I can go on about it forever. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.
It's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you, 'cause